Hi, it's John Kelly. In this module, we are going to discuss the Statement of Quality Management, standards on quality management, and in particularly the implementation of these standards and the timing. And as always, we want to be efficient and effective, follow professional standards, and document what we have done properly. Now, I'm starting to get distressed when the standard setting boards introduce a new standard and they describe it and discuss it as if it's all completely different, and when it's not. And I've been thinking about this for a while. I have 3 previous of these presentations on each of the 3 new standards, and I think I mentioned in all of them that really not a lot changes. But as I was thinking about implementation, I wanted to focus on particularly first what changes for the audit team. What will the audit team have to do differently as they execute the audit? And I think the answer is, from these 3 standards, basically nothing. Some words may change, but the old words and the new words mean the same. So SQM 1, Statement of Quality Management 1, and I put an R in there to distinguish it from the old one, so revised. Procedures become objectives. In other words, something that you had to do becomes something that you intend to do. So that has no effect on the team. It will have an effect on quality control, standards, checklists, monitoring, but it won't have an effect on the audit team. And of course, changes to quality management checklists, but there's no effect on the team, and anyway, the changes are minor. SQM2, Second Partner Review, changes the policies and procedures for the firm. Not really substantially different, more words. I mean, you still have to do it if you have to do it. You still should appoint someone qualified as opposed to unqualified. It has to be done and documented before the report is released. So that's the way it was before, and it's the way it is now. The firm's policies and procedures will have to become a little more different, and so the manual and the forms will have to change, but it has no effect on the way the audit is done. It has almost no effect at all on what the second partner does. And as I said, there's lots more words, but little is different, so no effect. Because they have been very clear that some of the things that I had initially included in my form aren't required. Like I had included reviewing materiality as a significant matter, and they've made it quite clear, significant matters, second partner is supposed to decide, not the form. So I've deleted some of those things. I don't think anyone may notice. My theory is the second partner should be smart enough to be able to figure out what to do without a form to tell them. And 220R, which is about quality on the audit, it talks a lot about what the auditor, but not the engagement partner, must do. In other words, the auditor is almost anyone in the firm. Administrative staff. There are things that admin staff could do as part of the audit, but it doesn't have to be done by a designated accountant and not by the engagement partner at all. So no particular effect from that either. And then 2 changes and 2 issues as we get into what the quality management people have to do and what the annual quality monitoring process has to be, and what firm policies and procedures have to be. And like I say, probably the biggest change, and this is kind of silly, but the biggest change is a change from quality to quality management from quality control. It was quality control before, and now it's quality management. Big deal. And as I said, procedures become objectives. Something that you had to do before becomes something that you intend to do, and whether you've done it or not, you had it as an objective. So firm policies will have to have a whole bunch of objectives added to them. and some procedures that we had, things that we actually did, can be deleted. So not much is done differently in terms of what you did before and what you now do. Lots of form changes. And the implementation timing, and this may be the biggest thing, making sure that you have people using the right forms at the right time, though we'll, I think, conclude in the end that even if you use the wrong form, the changes are so subtle that it doesn't make much difference. So, and as I said, you might have assumed under the old standards there was a human resource section where you had human resource quality control procedures and an appendix which aren't required. There's requirements and suggestions in appendix you might or might not. Suggested an annual staff evaluation process. I think that's a pretty good idea, but it's only a suggestion and I've deleted it. So if a firm wants to have annual staff evaluations, they may, but they also may decide not to. And the old engagement quality control review, there were a few requirements on what you absolutely have to do, what the section says you must do. And as I said, you might have required a consideration of materiality. I've deleted that now from my form. You can leave that to the judgment of the engagement quality review reviewer, and if they can't figure out what to do, they probably shouldn't be an EQRR. And just to reflect on engagement quality review, it has a very narrow purpose. There's the section reference. It's a review of significant judgments. And I don't think it's the responsibility of the form to tell the reviewer what to do. They need to be capable of figuring that out themselves. And it says, however, an engagement quality review is not intended to be an evaluation of whether the entire engagement complies with professional standards and applicable legal and regulatory requirements, or with the firm's policies and procedures. So it's a very narrow requirement. And as an EQRR, you have to be really careful not to get too involved and do too much, because the more involved you get, and the more you're involved with the audit and making decisions, the more you're likely to disqualify yourself for being too involved. So it's a very thin line to tread, to be involved enough but not too involved. So we have to be very careful with that. Now the other requirement now, or requirement or option, is you can have engagement quality review on any engagement. Now it is required for public companies, listed companies, but every other engagement you could do an EQR if you felt like it. Now what I see some people doing is they say, well, gee, we don't have any public companies, so let's pick our 5 most complicated clients and require engagement quality review on them. That may well be a waste of time, because you should only pick companies that are clients that are as complicated as a large public company. In my practice, where we had small public companies, we were required to do EQR, but it really was almost unnecessary. There really weren't any significant things, anything complicated for a second partner to review. We did it, but we probably didn't really need to. Theoretically, we didn't need to do it. The rule says we have to, so we did. One of the new requirements or the new changes is you could decide to do EQR on a compilation. And if there are significant items or significant involvement of shareholders, you probably shouldn't be doing a compilation. So the whole concept of EQR, where sophisticated, complicated issues, many users, if you've got a compilation that's in that situation, you probably shouldn't be doing a compilation. And if you did do an EQR, the EQR should probably say, we shouldn't be doing a compilation, we should be doing an audit. Anyway, it's comical, I think. Now they say the new section is risk-based, and it's really the same as before, and to call it risk-based, you could have called the old one risk-based. Not entirely sure this is risk-based the way an audit is supposed to be risk-based. because it kind of says if you follow procedures, the procedures you follow produced a risk-based approach. I don't think that's kind of right, but never mind. The three things you do are establish objectives, and the standard provides a list. You identify and assess risks, and you respond to the risks. So that makes it risk-based. Risk assessment procedures in 23, 24, and 25. Assess risk, establish objectives and responses. Kind of repeats the same thing from before. Identify and assess risk based on knowledge of the firm. In a small firm, again, be careful with this. If you say, gee, I don't think there's any other risks than the standard ones in the standard, so I'm not going to identify any more, that might well be correct. So don't invent a few risks just to say, oh, we thought about it and we found an additional risk, so we have another response. Don't do that. Now, there are lots of forms to change. All the inspection checklists have to change. Audit programs, particularly the EQR one, confidentiality letter may have to change. Firm policy manual, lots of changes. We're going to objectives and getting rid of procedures. Our quality monitoring practice resource, the thing that we use annually to do the quality monitoring process, has to change. Staff evaluation form, we may decide to delete that. So there's a bunch of forms to change, but as we see, not really a lot of these are ones used in the audit, other than perhaps the EQR one, but then I've deleted stuff from that. Now there are three sections. These are the Canadian effective dates. SQM1R, and I put an R beside it to differentiate it from the old one. General Standards on Quality. So we have to design and implement that by the 15th of December 2022. And we perform our first new quality review before December the 15th, 2023, which we would have had to do anyway. SQM2, quality reviews for individual engagements, which are part of SQC1 before. Year ends beginning on or after December the 15th, 22, which basically means December 2023 year ends, and another year for related services. I'm not entirely sure if I would wait a year just because I would want to get this over with. And the second partner review standards, year ends beginning on or after December 2022, so again, 2023 year ends. So I thought about that. I went, okay, how's this going to change? Well, we're going to do our quality control review, not quality management review, in 2022, and we'll be using all the old forms and all the old rules, and presumably we'll do that sometime in the summer of 2022, after busy season is well and truly over, so August, let us say. Then we have to implement SQM1R. We have to be ready with all the new forms, and that's before December the 12th, 2022. So presumably we'll develop these forms, and then sometime after we complete the quality review in August, we will implement the new forms in September 2022. So the 2022 engagement quality review, the second partner review, will be done using the old forms and the rules, which aren't that different, because it starts for December 2023 year ends, and the second partner review for December 2023 year end, unless you're involved in interim, will be done in 2024, so it'll be a while. The 2023 quality review process will be done using the new forms and rules. It'll be done using objectives and not procedures, but all the engagements that will be being reviewed will be done the old way, even though that's not that much different. So that's in summer 2023, and none of those year ends will be December 2023 year ends, unless you have a strange short year end. So we'll all be old year. The 2023 engagement quality review. So all the engagement quality reviews done in 2023 will be done using the old forms and rules, because it won't be until December 23 year ends that we're doing it. So in February 2024, you could be doing Second part in review, on a November year end, you would use the old form, not that different than the new form. And if you're doing a December year end, you'll use it using the new form, which again is not that different from the old form. The application of 220, the individual quality management rules for audits, in 2023, all in the old forms and rules, all the way up to November 2023 year ends, so basically all of 2023. In 2023, the 220R, new forms and new rules, fortunately all not different at all, hardly. December 2023 year ends, which means we won't be doing that until 2024, February-March 2024. 2024 engagement quality reviews, probably new for all and perhaps a bit less, December 23 year ends and after. The 2024 quality review, again, new forms and rules, but up until November 23, everything's done the old quote-unquote way, though it's not that different. After that, it's all new. So I don't think it's till 2025 where we finally catch up on all of this. And in the end, none of it's really that different. So changes are such that if you accidentally use the old form instead of the new form, or you use the new form when you really should have been using the old form, it really will probably make no difference. So we should be careful about that, but I don't think it's going to be fatal to the audit if you don't. And as I say, 220R, old 220 had 7 documentations, the new one has 4. And they're all the same and otherwise required by other sections. And new 220R actually limits what the engagement partner has to do themselves. So not a whole lot different, old versus new. Documentation, I'm just going to review this again. I mean, if it says you got to document it, you got to do it. The firm has to document the system so the staff can understand. We had a policy manual before, we'll need a new one now. Document the responses if there are any, and there may be none, but that's the same. Implementation of responses would be implicit in the response. And there are some sections that are helpful. A202 don't have to document every matter considered or judgment made. So if practice review comes in and says, hey, how come you didn't document this? You will point them to A202. If they say, but you don't have absolutely everything required in a policy manual, you'll point them to A203, which is manuals, checklists, forms, emails, website postings, all are acceptable. And if they say, well, you haven't done the same thing that a great big international firm did, you say, well, in a smaller firm, informal, undocumented communication is okay. So try to document as much as you can, but there are 3 paragraphs to point to people. Series of matters to include names of those responsible for doing the quality review. So have a form, who's responsible, the managing partner, whoever it is, have a form to document it, do it, and it may be implicit in firm policy in the forms, because firm policy may be the managing partner does this. Quality objectives and risk, well, there's a big long list in the book, so put all of them in firm policy, plus any others you have. Responses, as I say, they're obvious in the response and there may be none. Monitoring activities, findings, actions, and communications. Obvious from the forms, and we had to do that before. And a conclusion. Have a standard conclusion in the form that the person responsible signs off. So new or not, and as I said at the beginning, I'm kind of getting tired of each standard as it's changed being presented as all new when it's not. And in this, there's really not much that's new. There's many more words, much more detail affects the words in the forms. But as I said before, it's much the same, repeated or in greater detail. So, thanks for listening.